What's up, Taiwan? I'm Jaime Ocon with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. We begin with the latest on Chinese espionage in Taiwan. The country's Defense Minister Wellington Koo has been grilled at the legislature over a string of recent spy cases, some reportedly including military police who guard the president. Rick Lard has been following developments and joins us now from our newsroom. Rick, what has the Defense Minister been saying?
Well, Wellington Koo, the Defence Minister, taking a lot of flack in the legislature this morning. Lawmakers asking him how Taiwan's military could become so rotten with Chinese espionage and pressuring him to do more to root out those Chinese spies. Koo, of course, under increasing pressure here over those rising number of spy cases that appear to be getting higher up Taiwan's chain of command. This week, there's been reports of spy cases involving a former aide to the foreign minister and also the military police tasked with protecting Taiwan's presidential office. Koo said that he had plans to revise the military penal code to include premeditated espionage. This is, of course, all part of China's wider efforts to intimidate Taiwan into accepting its claims. Influence and infiltration are on the rise here. Now, to get a sense of how big an issue this is for Taiwan, I spoke to political scientist Jaime of the National University of Singapore, and I began by asking him whether Taiwan was doing enough to combat Chinese espionage.
Of course, more can be done, but Taiwan as a democracy will probably want to do so in a way that follows a rule of law that respects human rights and due process and all that, which can mean that things are a little bit tougher. In some ways, it's a sort of marathon to address espionage in general and PRC espionage in particular, given the resources available to the Chinese state. In terms of military courts, in terms of investigation, in terms of capacity, these things are important. I think having clearer laws that help agencies figure out what to do, that's probably useful as well. I would also note that there is the related influence operation stuff that is not exactly espionage, but is somewhat related. Those things can and probably should be clarified at the same time. And it's also about upgrading skills and technology and techniques and fieldcraft continually, because on the PRC side, they will continue to improve themselves.
And what exactly is the threat that Taiwan is facing? What is Beijing's big plan through these espionage campaigns?
So there's several. One is to perhaps understand what Taiwan is doing in terms of its policies, to get key technologies, get its war plans, for instance. And that is slightly different from the influence operation stuff, which seeks to shape public opinion, shape legislation and policy. So there are these two slightly related but slightly different fronts that aren't exactly reducible into each other.
And we've also seen recent Chinese spy cases in the Philippines. Is Chinese espionage on the rise globally?
So this is an interesting point. I mean, there's a claim that the PRC is stepping up its espionage activities. That having been said, with espionage cases coming to the public, of course, they create a lot of trepidation. They create they draw a lot of attention. But the fact that espionage cases are being detected also means that espionage networks are being disrupted, right? So an increase in activity, if that's matched by an increase in the breaking up of espionage activities, that is not necessarily that bad a thing.
In the legislature today, the Ministry of National Defense also said that China's tactics are changing, increasingly using criminal gangs and religious groups for recruitment. This is an evolving threat for Taiwan, and what's at stake for Taiwan's military is their credibility as they lead the fight against China.
Thank you, Rick. We'll be keeping an eye on those spy cases. Prosecutors have applied to detain 6 people linked to the opposition Kuomintang as they investigate falsified recall petitions. Authorities searched more than 30 KMT offices as part of the probe, which centers on signatures from deceased people found on petitions to recall lawmakers from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. The KMT says the detentions are politically motivated, accusing the DPP of using its power to undermine their recall campaign.
很遗憾，现在的双重标准，是不是就只有半蓝不半绿？选举输不起，连罢免也要输不起吗？
The Central Election Commission says it's looking into fraud in both KMT and DPP-backed recall campaigns and will treat all cases equally. The U.S. and China remain deadlocked in the retaliatory tariff sparring match. The White House now says it's waiting for Beijing to play its hand. Joyce Tseng has the latest.
The world's largest economy is still in a standoff with its closest rival. U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods remain at 145%, and China's strike back on American goods at 125%, a retaliation match that has sent global markets down. The White House says that it's up to Beijing to make a move.
The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them.
U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly said that his relationship with Chinese President Xi Jinping is great, suggesting talks are imminent. Meanwhile, Trump has expanded investigations into potential new tariffs, now targeting imports of critical minerals, a lot of which comes from China. Earlier this month, Beijing already limited exports of 7 types of rare earth minerals, penalizing the U.S. for its high tariff rates. Over in Malaysia, Xi Jinping touched down for his second stop in a 3-country visit to Southeast Asia. The Chinese leader has already signed dozens of deals with Hanoi to boost cooperation and is set to do the same in Kuala Lumpur and Phnom Penh. Beijing says its economy has grown in the first quarter of the year, beating expectations.
国内生产总值31.87万亿人民币。按不变价格计算，同比增长5.4%。
At the same time, it warned that steep U.S. tariffs will add, quote, certain pressures on China's economy. On Chinese social media, AI-generated memes mocking the U.S.'s goal of reviving domestic manufacturing have gone viral. But among Chinese exporters, a more serious tone. At a trade show at a southern Chinese shipping hub, firms are hoping the U.S. and China will strike a deal to lower the levies.
对于我们来说，伤害是很大的，因为我们主要的市场也在美国。
关税在调整，也是我们行业洗牌的一个过程，优胜劣汰。
As Trump's tariff policy continues to evolve, fears of a global recession run high. Many watching in anticipation, wary of where the trade battle between the world's 2 largest economies could go. Scott Huang and Joyce Sen for TaiwanPlus.
Nvidia is facing a $5.5 billion US setback due to U.S. export restrictions on its AI chips. Last week, U.S. officials told the tech giant it must obtain licenses to export its H20 chips to China, citing concerns they may be used in supercomputers, improving its tech capabilities. The multi-billion-dollar earnings hit impacted the company's stock, with its shares sliding about 6% after the announcement. The Philippines says at least 1 underwater drone captured off the country's coast sent messages to China.
It's very clear that these are used for mapping out the underwater terrain, collecting information, like what I mentioned, mathematic data. All of these are used across different fields, to include underwater warfare.
Philippine military officials say the drones, which had markings from Chinese companies, were designed to not be retrieved. Local fishers found 2 of them in 2022 and 3 more last year, all in waters the Navy calls strategically important. 1 person has been killed and 10 others are missing after a dredging ship capsized in the waters off the Philippine coast. The Coast Guard says a crew of 25 were on board, 13 Filipinos and 12 Chinese nationals. So far, 14 people have been rescued. The Coast Guard says the sand carrier remains partially submerged, with some crew members possibly trapped in the engine room. The crew member who died has been confirmed to be a Chinese citizen. Google has signed its first geothermal energy deal in Asia with Taiwan. Its plan with global developer Baseload Capital will add 10 megawatts of energy to the country by 2029 and contribute to Taiwan's net zero 2050 goals. For more on the project and what it means for Taiwan, Tiffany Wong spoke to Basalt Wang, Executive Director at Taiwan Geothermal Association.
What does it mean that Google's first geothermal energy project in Asia is here in Taiwan?
The geothermal energy is quite popular in Asia, like India, Indonesia, Philippines, and Japan, they all have tremendous geothermal power plants, but they choose the first one in Asia. They know the Taiwan government have permit the geothermal strategy and policy, and also they have data center in Taiwan, so they have promised the 100% renewable energy. 10 megawatt in Taiwan is just a very small part because they want to finish the project by 2029. But 2030, based on the Ministry of Economic, their goal, 2030 in Taiwan, we should have 1.2 gigawatt. That means 1,200 megawatt geothermal capacity in Taiwan. So 10 megawatt is just very small part. I think that's just a beginning.
Google is partnering with Baseload Power Taiwan to develop this geothermal plant, but all of its projects in Taiwan are in development so far. What challenges do you expect to see this project face ahead?
I think they must conquer some challenges that there's some local authorities, local government. I think that's a big challenge for them because in Taiwan, the geothermal laws is only included in the renewable energies law, so they are not protect the right to developers to develop a geothermal resource on the ground. So that's a big challenge for them because they will face a few competitors. They may choose the similar area as they choose.
Do you think corporate partnerships like this one genuinely support Taiwan's net zero goals, or do you think this is more about image than impact?
I think corporate partnership, I think is a very effective strategy in Taiwan, because some company they have technology, some company they have land. Corporate partnership is a very effective strategy because in Taiwan now we have to connect to global. They have more advanced technology that can utilize in geothermal and make the developer more low risk, low cost. I can imagine that it will be a very good impact for the future.
That was Basalt Wang, Executive Director of the Taiwan Geothermal Association. Taiwanese golf star Heather Lin is stepping up her game, competing in her first Ladies Professional Golf Association tournament.
其实会有点紧张，但是现在我觉得越来越适应，然后越来越就 comfortable 吧。对，我当然是希望能为国争光，就是像雅妮姐这样子，她那时候带来这样对台湾高尔夫带来这样的影响。
The 25-year-old qualified for a spot in the LPGA after winning last year's Epson Tour Championship. She was born and raised in Taiwan before attending the University of Oregon, where she led her school team to a national championship in 2022. The 2026 Winter Olympic and Paralympic torches have been unveiled in Osaka. The torches will be lit at the ancient Greek town of Olympia in November before heading to Rome to begin their relay across the country in December. The Winter Olympics will be held in Milan and the town of Cortina d'Ampezzo next February. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, take a look at the thousands of people in Bangladesh celebrating the first day of the Bengali year 1432. I'm Jaime Ocon. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, follow TaiwanPlus on social media.